Please go to elithecomputerguy.com in order to view schematics, code, and more for the projects that you are learning about. Welcome back. So in today's video, we're going to delve more into permissions in the Linux world. So in the previous video, I showed you how permissions work in the Linux world, where essentially you have three permissions. You have read, you have write, and you have execute, and you can assign those permissions to the user account that owns the folder, the group account that owns the folder, and then everybody else. Again, it is important to understand that in the Linux world, permissions are very, very, very simple. For good and for ill, the fact of the matter is that they are simple. This is not the Windows world, where in Windows Active Directory, holy crap, at this point in time, you can probably get a certification just in permissions alone because there is so much going on with permissions in Windows Active Directory. In the Linux world, it's simple. You just only got about 6 configurations, and that's absolutely it. So I showed you how the numbering system worked. Again, what 777 means or 741 means, that type of thing when we're talking about Linux permissions. And so today I'm going to show you how to actually set those permissions. So the big tools that we're going to be using today is something called chwn, basically change owner. So with this command, you're able to change the ownership of a file or folder. So you can change the user account ownership, and you can change the group account ownership for the file or folder, so that the permissions that correspond to the user account owner and the group account owner can then be assigned to that user and to that group account. And then I will also show you the chmod command, or chmod command. And what this does is this actually allows you to change the permissions for a file or folder. So you can use chmod, then 777, 751, 157, whatever the hell you want the permissions to be. So I'll show you those two commands today, and those will be the two primary commands that I'm showing you. I'll also show you a couple of other commands that are interesting, such as the groups command. The groups command allows you to see what groups a certain user account is a member of, so that can be very useful. And I'll also show you the members command. So the members command actually shows you the members of a specific group. So again, this is one of those problems you get into in the Linux world, where everything is really simple just so long as you know specific information, right? If you know what the members of a group are, if you know what the groups are, it's very easy to then assign permissions. But one of the problems, again, especially if you're coming into a Linux system that's been running for a number of years, one of the questions that you have to ask yourself is, do you know the members of a group? Do you want to give specific people permission to a file or folder? And that can run you into a bit of a problem if you don't know how to get that information. So I'll be showing you the groups command, I'll be showing you the members command, and then I'll actually show you something called the cat command to look in the group file, and that will actually show you all the groups in your particular Linux server, so that, again, you can make sure what groups are there and who you want to make the group user for files and folders. So with that, let's go over to my Linux system to show you how all this works. So here we are at my Linux system. Again, I'm using Ubuntu 18.04.3 LTS, but everything that I'm showing you today should more or less work on whatever distribution you're using, and should be, useful for a decade to come at least. So we're gonna log in with my user account Bob and my super secret password of 123456. And this then logs us into the server. I will clear the screen. The first thing that I will do, as I do many times, is pwd command. So this will show us the folder that we are currently in. So we are in the Bob folder in the home directory. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do ls, so list-l. So this is going to list the files and folders within this directory and give us some more of that security information. So when I do lsl, it gives me a total of 4 results, and I can go over here and I can see the different things. So I have a test file, a test folder, a tim file, and a tim file too. So those are the 4 items. Basically, I have 3 files and 1 folder. I can see what the permissions are. So for the test file, read write for the user account that owns the test file, read write for the group user account that owns test file, and then read permission for everybody else. We come over here and we take a look at the user and the group account. So we have the Bob user account, and whenever you create a user, they're also given their own group. So basically you can just assign permissions essentially to one user. So Bob, have the read write permission, and then everybody else has the read permission. If we take a look at the test folder, we can see the D, so that's for directory. So the user account that owns this has read, write, execute. The group account that owns this has read, execute, and then everybody else for some reason has an execute permission. So you can go over here, we can see the user account that owns this particular folder is Sue. The group account that owns this particular folder is another group. So Sue has read, write, execute permission. Members of the another group have read, execute permission. If we come down here to the tem file, we can see that the owner has read, write, execute permission, the group owner has read, execute permission, and everybody else has the execute permission. So tem has read, write, execute permission. Members of the test group have read, execute permission. We go down here, we see tem file 2, and again, Bob is the owner, test group is the group owner, and we can go over and we can take a look at the permissions there. So that basically just gives you an idea of the files, folders, permissions, and group ownership within this particular directory. So the first thing that I may be interested in is basically wondering, I wonder what groups I am a part of, right? So if I wanted to assign permissions so that I'm able to access a file or folder, but I may not want to be the specific, the user owner of that file or folder. One of the questions that can be asked is, what groups am I a member of? So if I simply use the groups command, so the groups command, absolutely nothing else, and I hit enter, this shows me what groups I am a member of. So I am the Bob accounts. The Bob is the initial account that's created when you create the Ubuntu, when you install the Ubuntu server. So I'm in that Bob, so I'm in all the groups that are part of that. And so I am a member of the Bob group, I'm a member of the ADM group, I'm a member of the CD-ROM group, the sudo group, because I can use sudo, dip, plug, dev, lxd. So these are the members I am currently, or these are the groups I am currently a member of. But let's think about it for a second. I go, I wonder what groups tem is a member of, or Sue. So if I use groups, space, and then simply whatever the username is, let's say tem, hit enter, I can see that Tim is a member of the tem group, and he is a member of the test group. If I do groups, and then I plug in Sue, see what she's a member of, I can see that Sue is a member of the Sue group. So that's just the group that's created when her user account is created, and also the test group. So this is a way I can sit there and see what groups certain users are members of. Now, an interesting thing also is there's actually a members command that you can use. Now, if you're going to use the members command, at least on Ubuntu 18.04, LTS, you actually have to add it. So you have to use sudo apt-get install members. But once you've installed it, you can actually see the members of groups. So if I do members, and then I simply do space, and then let's say I do test group, hit enter, then I can see the members of the group test group are Tim and Sue. So again, that's another way of sitting there. If I'm sitting here and going, okay, well, who are the members of test group so I know how the permissions are being dealt with, I can do members test group and plug that in. Or I can do members another group, hit enter. Nope, and I guess there are no members of another group. So I know, okay. So I mean, and that's one of the problems you can run into in the real world is imagine you create a group, you forget to put members into that group, and then you create the permission, you make that a group owner. That might be the problem you're running into. You meant to put a user into that group, but you didn't. Now, if we do clear, one of the things that I can show you is you can also use this thing called the cat command. So basically the cat command allows you to view files in the system. And so we do /etc, etc/group. This is the text file that has all of your groups. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pipe this through less so I can see this and won't scroll by me. And so what this is going to do is this basically is going to allow me to view this file called group. This file called group in the etc folder. This is all the groups on your computer. So again, you can also see what's there. And then I'm piping this through less so that I can scroll through it. So I'm going to hit enter. And so this is going to show me all of the different groups, and then obviously also the members of the group. So root, daemon, bin, sys, adm. We can see syslog is a member of the group, Bob is a member of the group. We can go down here, cd-rom, Bob is a member of the group, and then if I hit enter, I can simply step through and see what the different groups are. So if I'm trying to look for all the groups in the system, again, like here, we can see test group down here, and Tim and Sue are members. So that's another way to take a look at the groups at the system and then what the members of those groups are. Then what we can do is we can hit Q, so Q to quit out of this, and we're back at the command prompt, and I will hit clear, so we go back to a clear screen. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to change the owner of a file on the system. So let's do ls-l again, and let's take a look at a file. So let's say we have this test file. So you have this test file. It is currently owned by Bob, and it's owned by the group Bob. So let's change the ownership. So what we can do is I'll just put sudo here just to make sure it all goes through properly. Since I'm the owner, it should be fine. But again, when you're doing the maintenance task, if you just put sudo, it can make life a lot easier for you. I'm going to do change own, so chwn, and then what you're going to do is you're going to first say the user account you want to change the owner to. So it's going to be Tim, and I can do colon, and then I can change the group account. So I'm going to change it to Tim and test group. So basically sudo change own, Tim is the user account, colon, and then test group is the group account. We can see currently it's Bob. Then I do space, I do test file. So this is the file that we're going to be changing the ownership for, and then I hit enter. Password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, super secret, hit enter, and it is now done. If I do ls-l, we can take a look, and so where test file was owned by Bob before, it is now owned by Tim, test group. Now let's say I wanted to simply change the user account that owns that particular file. What I can do is, again, I'll just do sudo to make my life easier, change own, then I can simply put a name, so Bob. So that's the user account, test file. So this will change the ownership for the user account to Bob for test file. I hit enter, do ls-l. We can see now that Bob is owner, test group is the group owner of test file. Now what if I just want to change the group owner? So I don't want to change the user account owner, just the group owner. I can leave the user account out and simply do colon and then the group name, and that will be for the group owner. So sudo change own space colon. So we'll just change it to another group. So we're going to change the group ownership from test group to another group space test file, and then you're going to hit enter, ls-l. And now we can see another group is the group owner, and Bob is the user account owner for test file. So that is what we're dealing with when we're changing either the user account or the group account that owns a particular file. Now it is a little bit different when you're dealing with folders. So let me do clear. I'll do ls-l again, just so we know what we're looking at. And so we're taking a look at the folder. So whenever you're dealing with permissions for a folder, you have to think about the permissions for the folder itself and for the items within the folder. And so that's where you can use something called the recursive option or the recursive argument. So what I can do here is if I'm going to change the ownership of the test folder, I can do sudo. I can do space, I can do chwn for change owner, hyphen, uppercase R, and that'll be for recursive. Not only does it change the ownership for the folder itself, but it changes the ownership for the items within the folder. Then I can do space, as I've done before. I can do, let's say, Bob, colon, test group. So that'll change both the user account. So basically it's owned by Sue currently and another group. So I will change the ownership of test folder to Bob and do test group. And I will do it recursively. I'll do space, test folder, and then I will hit enter. Now if we do ls-l, then this now shows us that Bob is the owner and test group is the group owner of the folder called test. And that's basically how that works as far as change ownership is concerned. Again, when you're simply dealing with files, you use change chwn, then you use the user account, colon, the group account, then whatever the file is. If you're going to be dealing with folders, think about using that recursive option in order to not just change the ownership of the folder itself, but the items within the folder. So that runs people into problems sometimes, where they'll change the ownership of the folder, but then they don't change the ownership of the items in the folder, and then they run into problems because of permissions issues. And so that is how the change owner command works in Linux. So with that, let's go over and take a look at the chmod command, the chmod command. So with that, we're going to clear the screen again. We're going to do ls-l. That's so we can take a look again at the different files and folders here. So in order to use the chmod command, in order to change the permissions, what we're going to do is sudo. Then we're going to do chmod. And then we're going to change to whatever permissions we want. So let's say everybody has full control. So again, if you're thinking about this, these are all the numbers. So 1 is for execute, 2 is for write, 4 is for read. So if you want read and write permission, that's 6. If you want read permission, that's 4. If you only want write permission, that's 2. If you want write and execute permission, that's 3. So if you want full control is 7. So 4 plus 2 plus 1 is 7. And then again, remember, you go across. So it's the user account, and then the group owner, the user owner account, the group owner account, and then everybody else. So 777 will mean everybody has permission to do basically whatever they want with that particular file. So that's what we're going to do, chmod. And then we're going to do 777, and then we're going to say for test file. So right now, the owner, Bob, has read-write permission. The another group owner has read-write permission, and everybody else has read permission. So after this, everybody should have read-write-execute permission. Then we're going to hit enter, ls-l. And now, as we can see, it has changed from what we had before. So basically, everybody has read, write, execute permission. Again, with this, let's say we wanted to give the owner all the permission. We wanted to give the group owner, let's say, read permission, and then we want to give everybody no permission. So what that would be 7 for everything, 4 for read, 0 for not being able to do anything. So that would be 740. So what we could do here, sudo chmod 740 for test file. Then you hit enter, ls-l, and there we go. So basically the owner, the user account owner, has read, write, execute permission. The group account owner has read permission, and then everybody else has no permission. So that's really all there is to the chmod command, the chmod command. Again, when you're dealing with folders, something that you need to be thinking about, do you want to change the permission just for the folder itself, or a recursive for everything in there? So again, we have read, write, execute, read, execute, and then simply execute. So I could do chmod hyphen, again, uppercase R, 777 for test folder. Let me go back, put the sudo in there just to make sure I don't run into stupid issues. And then I can hit enter, ls-l. And as you can see now, test group, or this test folder has read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute. So everybody can do anything they want to it. Here in Ubuntu, basically the folder will get highlighted in green, or will have that green background if everybody has full control of the folder. So that's why you get that background. So again, let's say for the folder, we want the user account that owns it to have full control. We want the group account that owns it to have read permission. And then we want everybody else to, let's say, have nothing. So again, 740. So what we can do here is sudo chmod 7. Then we do recursive -r 740 for test folder. So basically, change the permissions recursively throughout the folder. Do 740 for test folder. Then we hit enter -ls-l. And there we go. Now we have the test folder again, read, write, execute for Bob, the owner, a read for members of the test group, and nobody else has permission to do anything in the folder. So that's really all there is to permissions and ownership, being able to change permissions and ownership within Linux. Again, the tools that will also be useful for you is using that groups command. So if you just plug in groups command on its own, it will tell you the groups you're a member of. If you type in group groups space, and then whatever the user account you're interested in, it will show you the groups that that user account is a member of. The members tool is very useful. The members command shows you the memberships, who is a member of certain groups. So you can put in members space test group or whatever the group name is. It will show you the members of that particular group. Or of course you can simply use the cat command and then actually access the etc/group file and read that, and then you can actually just see all of the groups and all of the different memberships. So those are valuable tools to use also. And so that's really all there is to changing owners and to changing the permissions for files and folders. So that's all you have for changing the ownership and changing the permissions for files and folders. Again, the big thing in the Linux world is, since this is not a graphical user interface, the problem you run into is not the command itself. chmod or chown, add in a -r. That's pretty simple, right? You probably have memorized that already. The issue that you run into is, do you know what members there are to particular groups? Do you know what groups you have on your particular Linux system? Has this been documented anywhere? Are you sure that when you give permissions to a particular group, that all the members of that group should have the permissions that you're giving, right? Those are the problems that you run into as a real system administrator. Again, the commands are simple. Typing this crap in is simple. It's understanding what the consequences of those commands will be that things get difficult very quick, right? Because somebody can be a member of a group, you've forgotten about it, I don't know, in a particular folder, you're putting documents on who should get a raise and who should get fired, and you didn't realize that one of the people that's about to get fired is a member of a group that has read permission for everything in that folder. Bad things can ensue. So using the groups command, using the members command, just going in, making sure what the memberships and the groups are, that is very important for the security and for the permission. And honestly, that's where security really fails in the modern world. It's not that people don't know how to do the commands. It's not that they don't know what the best practice is. They just make it dumb configuration change, and then everything goes to hell afterwards. Again, like when you start looking at things like ransomware, so many times it's because when permission was changed, they used the recursive, right? So you see this a lot with web applications where you're going in and you're trying to modify some configuration file. You don't have the appropriate permissions to modify the configuration file. And so what some people do is they will change mod on the folder and they'll recursive for 777, right? Again, you're going in there, you're testing, you're playing around, you're experimenting. You're not worried about security. Like, I'm not worried about security because I'm just going in and messing with a few configurations. So chmod -r 777 on whatever the folder is. And now you can go in and play with it, willy-nilly as you want. Well, then you set everything up properly, and hey, this server is working pretty well, and you're not really thinking about it because you haven't messed with the permissions in a month, because, right, you did that a month ago when you were first setting up the box. And so you think, I'll just forward the port to the internet, and now basically, any jackass with a connection to the internet is able to hack your system, and that's a bad thing. And so that's where you have to be careful with these permissions, the ownership, all of that kind of stuff, and really think it through. And again, be careful with what you're doing. So that's really all there is to changing ownership and changing the permissions. As always, I enjoy doing this video and look forward to seeing you at the next one.